Darcy?
How did you know it was me? I didn't say anything.
This is the one place she can be herself.
Games versus playing...
Sports?
Yes.
Had a real relationship with anyone in your entire life.
Nick Marshall's story begins with him as a businessman who, from childhood, was surrounded by women. His mother worked in a cabaret, and without a father figure in his life, the only men Nick had as role models were the type who spent their nights with different women. This lifestyle shaped Nick into a similar kind of man. A typical day for him starts with waking up after a romantic encounter and preparing for work, all while flirting and approaching any attractive woman he sees. Despite his questionable behavior, Nick always manages to get what he wants. For instance, he quickly convinces a waitress, who initially rejected him, to go out with him. Nick heads to his office, where his behavior also makes some female co-workers uncomfortable. He expects to be promoted at a meeting, but to his surprise, a woman named Darcy is announced as the new hire for the position he wanted. The company believes that hiring a woman will help them better market their products to a female audience. On top of this setback, Nick's ex-wife is getting remarried, and during her honeymoon, Nick must take care of their daughter, Alex, for a week. However, this responsibility doesn't bother him much, as he focuses on work, especially meeting Darcy. Although many at the office are skeptical of her, Darcy soon wins over several colleagues by proposing campaigns that emphasize understanding women better. She even gives the team a box of feminine products to try, although Nick dismisses it as unnecessary. At home, Nick's attitude towards women is clear. He sees them as objects. Still, he tries out the products Darcy gave him. Unfortunately, his daughter Alex arrives home with her boyfriend while he's testing these items. She's more upset that he took one of her CDs without asking, and grows even angrier when Nick shows he hasn't paid attention to her life, forgetting the name of her boyfriend. After an argument, Nick tries to apologize but accidentally falls into the bathtub and electrocutes himself with a hairdryer. When he wakes up, the cleaning lady speaks to him, but Nick is shocked to realize he can hear her thoughts, even though her lips aren't moving. At first, he ignores this, but as he leaves for work, he begins hearing the thoughts of women around him. These thoughts include harsh truths, like one woman wishing he'd died, and he realizes that many of his female co-workers think poorly of him, despite their polite behavior. Overwhelmed by the constant noise, Nick asks his friend for help, but his friend doesn't believe him and tells him to focus on creating good ideas for the upcoming meeting with Darcy. Desperate, Nick tries to come up with something by reading women's thoughts, but even then, his ideas are failures. He returns home and tries recreating the accident that gave him this ability, hoping to undo it. Despite his efforts during a storm, nothing changes, and Nick must accept that he still has the power to hear women's thoughts. He seeks out a therapist who once counseled him and his ex-wife, and although she initially dismisses him as delusional, she believes him after Nick starts revealing her inner thoughts.
Oh, my lips are sealed.
Holy crap! Oy vey!
Oh, you can say that again.
I didn't say anything.
She advises him to use this ability to give women what they want and become a king in their eyes. Taking her advice, Nick starts treating women better, but when he's around Darcy, he uses her thoughts to steal her ideas and impress their boss. Darcy, oblivious to Nick's scheming, sees him as a talented colleague with a good relationship with his daughter, which further impresses her. Nick even follows Darcy's advice to improve his bond with Alex, inviting her to shop for a dress for her school dance. That evening, Nick goes on a date with the waitress he had previously flirted with. Though the date starts awkwardly, his mind-reading ability helps him win her over. Nick's life continues to improve as he treats women kindly and continues to steal Darcy's ideas. His behavior wins over everyone, but Darcy starts to sense something is off. Although she tries to confront him, she finds herself developing feelings for Nick, despite telling herself not to fall for a coworker. Nick too starts to empathize with Darcy, and they begin spending more time together. However, Nick has to keep his promise to Alex and take her dress shopping. During lunch afterward, Nick tries to talk to Alex about sex, knowing she plans to have her first intimate experience with her boyfriend. His attempts fall flat, as Alex resents him for being an absent father, and storms out, unwilling to believe he's changed. Later that night, Nick gets a call from Darcy, and they go on a date. During their time together, Nick learns about Darcy's past, how she was once married but divorced because her husband didn't love her. This conversation deepens Nick's respect for Darcy, not just as a professional, but as a person. They share a kiss, but Nick, recognizing that Darcy is different from the women he's usually with, chooses to take things slow, turning down her invitation to spend the night with her. As Nick arrives at his house, he notices the waitress he had slept with days earlier waiting for him outside. She believed their relationship was serious and was hurt that he hadn't called her. Not wanting to hurt any women anymore, Nick tells a little lie, saying he can't be with her because he's gay. Although this situation is awkward, the real issue is that Nick is still taking credit for all of Darcy's ideas, especially now that they're about to secure a major deal with an important company. Despite his guilt, Nick tries to make things right by suggesting that Darcy should present the new campaign. However, Darcy doesn't believe she deserves the credit, feeling she didn't contribute enough to the project. Plus, she's fallen in love with Nick and genuinely wants what's best for him. Unable to change the situation, Nick presents the campaign, successfully closing the deal. Afterwards, he writes a letter to Darcy, confessing everything and asking for her forgiveness. Before he can finish, she interrupts him, suggesting they go celebrate together. Darcy takes Nick to a house she recently bought, still under renovation, and they spend the evening talking and dancing in the empty space. The next day, Nick heads to work, determined to fix his mistake. He goes straight to his boss, intending to admit that all the ideas were Darcy's. However, his boss already believes Nick is the company's best employee and offers him the promotion. Nick is confused, as the promotion was supposed to go to Darcy, but then he learns that since Darcy wasn't credited for the new campaign, the company decided to fire her. Even though they already signed the contract, Nick pleads with his boss to rehire Darcy, explaining that the deal was made possible because of her contributions. His boss agrees, and Darcy gets her job back. However, another problem arises. A female co-worker, whom Nick had been watching closely due to her suicidal thoughts, didn't show up to work that day. Concerned, Nick rushes to her apartment, even in the pouring rain, desperate to ensure she's okay. After some difficulty finding her address, he finally locates it with the help of an elderly woman. When he arrives, the door is open, and Nick finds a suicide note, but luckily, it turns out to be a misunderstanding. He finds the coworker alive and, relieved, offers her a better position to help motivate her for the future. Once this crisis is resolved, Nick turns his attention back to Darcy, going to her apartment to apologize. Darcy, however, is in no mood to see him, frustrated with everything that has happened. Nick, too, realizes he completely forgot about his daughter's dance. When he finds her, Alex is upset and locked in a bathroom, crying because her boyfriend abandoned her after she told him she wasn't ready to have sex. With some comforting words from her father, Alex calms down, and they return home together. After Alex falls asleep, Nick decides to follow through with his apology to Darcy. He goes to Darcy's new house, where they finally meet. Nick first tells her that she's been rehired, but Darcy feels she deserves to be fired for not doing her job properly. This prompts Nick to confess everything, how he somehow gained the ability to hear her thoughts and used it to steal her ideas. He admits it was a foolish mistake that he now regrets deeply, and more importantly, tells her that he's in love with her. However, that isn't enough for Darcy. Since she's still Nick's boss, she decides to fire him for his dishonesty, ending their relationship. Nick leaves feeling heartbroken, regretful, and like a failure for confessing his feelings only to be rejected. But just as Nick walks away, Darcy chases after him, admitting that firing him was a mistake. She tells him that shouldn't prevent them from being together, and now that Nick has learned to treat women with respect, they can have a serious relationship. In the end, Nick and Darcy reconcile, and he's ready to take this new chapter of his life seriously, with a better understanding of what women want. Don't forget to comment on which movie you'd like me to recap next, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on future videos.